Hey, what's up, rockers? How you guys doing? Oh, boy. I'm a little sleepy this morning. I need my coffee. Last night was a fun night. Last night, I'm going to find you a photo here. Last night, I went to Rammstein at the LA Coliseum. Let me show you what it looked like. Have you guys ever been to a show before, any of you out there? I'm trying to find a good picture. The stage is just on another level. It's unbelievable. And the pyro and the there's actually a little clearer shot. It's unbelievable. So it takes 6 days to build the stage. 6 days. So they have to have two in order to make it at all feasible or profitable. So that one can be being built in another location as they're getting the other one even just finished and set up for the show. And then they have 83 trucks. 83 trucks. 83 semis to move the whole show. It was unbelievable. I mean, the amount of pyro and the amount of there's not just pyro on stage. There's like multiple towers behind you if you're on the floor, that are with pyro coming out of them. These hulking huge towers. It's just an unbelievable show. Anyways, how do they my knees hurt says, how do they make money with that size of a show? I asked that question actually, and well, I'll tell you this. First of all, I was a guest of Mr. Paul Landers, who's the guitarist and longstanding member of that band, and he was such a gracious host and such a great guy. And the way I met him was through doing a video for the. He's got a signature Tech 21 pedal, Sans amp pedal, and so I made a video of his pedal. So years ago when I did that, he contacted me and he said he really liked it and he thanked me. And I was like, oh, that's really nice of you to reach out. And so all these years later, he said, hey, we're coming to, I think this tour was postponed twice due to COVID and stuff. And so, he said, we're finally doing it and coming to North America, doing another tour. So, and invited me to go. And I was like, absolutely. So, and he was such a great host. I mean, we saw the whole show. I had great tickets, went back. There was a little party afterwards, a big party, actually. It was a great party. But yeah, long story short, I was there till about, I think I got home at 3. So yeah, it was really fun. Really fun. I saw a lot of great friends there. My friend ran into my friend Charlie Paxton. He's a great drummer. And ended up hanging with him and his bud. And I went with Friedman, and Paul was a fan of Dave's amps, I guess, and stuff. So they met, and it was just a good hang. All kinds of fun folks there. So Billy Howardell, and it's always good to see him, etc., etc. So it was just really, really fun. What a night! An amazing sounding show, and yeah, I could go on and on and on. It was terrific. But we've got a bunch of you. Oh, Van Boingo says he saw the show in LA on Friday. Amazing. It was amazing, wasn't it? I mean, it sounded great. The visuals are great. There's a lot of humor actually, which I really found cool. Because it's kind of there's obviously like dark and heavy and all that, but there's also a lot of humor and kind of like it's like a lot all at once. It's really fun. Just a really, really great performance, and so it was unbelievable. Okay, I've gone on enough about that. You get the idea. I had fun. What else are you guys talking about here? Who's in the house here? We got Paul, who says your blue Sir Strat with the 3 single coils. That is the one guitar I have from Sir that actually has some other pickups in it. Many years ago, 4 years ago maybe, Ron Ellis made me a set of pickups for Strat, and I wanted to try them in something, and I thought, well, I'll try them in that guitar, and I put them in there, and they've been in ever since. The SSC, does it have an SSC? I'm not actually sure that guitar has an SSC in it. I only use it here in the studio, really. I've never taken it out since replacing the pickups anyway. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if that one guitar has the silent single system in it or not. I kind of think it doesn't, because it was made a long time ago. I love that guitar. It's right here, and I'll tell you the story of this guitar. It was a shop guitar, and I needed a couple guitars when I started playing with Don Henley that were basically straight up Strat style, and so I got my green one. That became the main one, but then I had another guitar that was tuned down a whole step for a few tunes that we did with the whole thing down a whole step. Last Worthless Evening was one of them. And so this guitar, long story short, lived in, standard, dropped a whole step for years, for 5 years or something like that. It had a different neck. It used to have a neck with, I think it was a rosewood board, and it had the shelf headstock on it, that one that Surdo that has the little shelf. And it was, the guitar is this color, Lake Placid, right? So it had a Lake Placid blue headstock with a white shelf, which looked pretty cool, and the dark fingerboard. But I never loved the neck. It was a very thin neck. I believe the guitar, I haven't talked to him about this, but I believe the guitar belonged to Peter Frampton. And then for whatever reason, it went back to Sir. Peter likes thinner necks. The neck on his main Phoenix Les Paul is really quite thin, and the neck on his 60 Les Paul is really, really thin. Wide, thin. So I assume he likes those, because I've got a chance to play both those guitars, and they had similar necks, although the 60 was thinner. The neck on this guitar was similar, so that stands to, he must have ordered it that way. And in any case, it ended up back at Sir. I get it, and I never loved that neck, so I ended up having them a few years ago do this neck for it. And I didn't have a straight up 50s style S guitar, like nothing. So I thought, why don't I make it like a little bit of a late 50s vibe? It does have a 3-ply guard on it, but I thought, let's do 21 frets. And it's got a radius that I really love personally on Sirs like this, which is the 9 to 12 radius as opposed to a 10 to 14. So it's got a little more curvature to it, down here. Still compound, but it has a bit more of a vintage feel to it, just a really comfy vintage feel. I love the 9 to 12 radius. I really do. I think it's great. So on a guitar like this, or on a T, on something like a vintage style, 3 singles or a T with just the traditional pickup setup, it's sort of strange to me to have the really flat board, or even a 10 to 14. I like a little more radius. It feels a little more right for that guitar, a little more vintage. So anyways, had this neck made. It's not a super bird's eye one, but it's got bird's eye, whatever they call it, AAA grade or whatever. It's probably an AA or something. So it's a bird's eye fingerboard. A one piece. Yeah, it's just a one piece, no fingerboard, just maple bird's eye neck, and it has the Ron Ellis pickups in it, and a 2-post vintage style trim, but vintage style saddles anyway, but 2-post, and it does actually stay in 2 pretty good, this guitar. So it's got locking tuners and stuff. Doesn't have the Wilkinson though, like a lot of my other guitars, and I find that's fine on this guitar. It works, but this particular guitar stays in tune quite well. So yeah, so that's that story. Okay, what else are you guys talking about? You guys are talking about the Rammstein show. So cool, man. It was so fun. Yeah, I keep talking about that, but it was great. It was great. Go big or go home, as it said. Yeah, that's what Paul said to me after. I was like, God, it's like you guys really go all out. And he goes, yeah. Well, he goes, like, sometimes it's like we want to do something. He's like, can we do it? Is it too much? Let's just do it. Like, just spend the money, just do it. Let's make it. And I love that. And that's why their show is so, because they commit and they spend a lot of money. It's a big gamble. It's all a big gamble. But he's like, we're out here and we're doing it, and it pays off. Like, it's still profitable, I think. So I guess that's a bit of a lesson right there, to go big or go home. Yeah, just do it, Van Boingo says Memorial Stadium was awesome. Yeah, that's the first time I've been to a show there. I'd never been to that LA Memorial Coliseum before. I guess it's about 100 years old. And I've never, like 30 years here, I've never been to a show there. So, uh, Karen says Iron Maiden also looks like it's a big production. Yeah, they go all out too. I mean, they once you find your thing, this is what we do. Like, AC/DC, Iron Maiden, and certainly Rammstein. I mean, if it's working, you're not going to switch it up, and you're going to give people that show. Sometimes I think about it like a totally different kind of band and music, but the band OK Go, right? They make these unbelievable videos. Their music's cool too. Their music's almost overshadowed by how amazing the visuals in the videos are and the amount of time and effort. You guys have seen them, I'm sure, right? If you haven't, go watch OK Go videos on YouTube, and you'll be like, "What?" Like they're the most insane videos that are, with a lot of like one take live performance kind of stuff going on. That's like it's performance art is what it is, um really unbelievable. But I always think like if you do that, then you're setting yourself up for like now everybody's going to expect you to top yourself on the next one, so it's got to be just how do we do that, like the amount of pressure, but unbelievable. So uh, yeah. Have you ever hung with Reinhold? Oh, sure. If you're in LA, I think who hasn't, he's a lot of fun at parties. Yeah. He's wild, man. He needs no introduction, right? We can just say Reinhold. We don't have to say Bogner. Do you have any experience with Cerberus guitars? I don't. Yeah, nothing with those. I don't. Sorry about that. Let's see here. I can't name a single song, but that show looks amazing. Come on, you must know Du Hast. The show is amazing, man. Like just go if next time, if you like, it's interesting because there's like, uh, it's very German. There's a heavy electronic element to the show as well. That's I find really cool and refreshing. I really like the keyboard player and his whole persona up there. Was super cool and fun, and that whole element of it. It's not just heavy guitars, there's that, and it's great. But there's also this other, there's a a techno side to the whole thing that's pretty cool too, and just a great show, really, really excellent. So Paul, if you watch this, thank you for your hospitality. I really appreciate it. And it was great to get to chat for a while afterwards. He was so nice. He's a big guitar nerd like all of us, and loves guitars and amps and effects and we had long talks about in-ears and versus monitors and modeling and versus amps and all that kind of stuff. So it was, he's one of us. Does it require a special setup in drop tuning, this guitar? Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I would have had for sure. Maybe I would have done 11s on it back in the day. I don't remember. It was probably just 10s tuned down. But yeah, you kind of got to intonate. Generally, I find, I mean, if I'm doing a quick thing where I got to just go into an alternate tuning or drop a guitar and I'm, in the studio, I won't generally I'll just do it and then play the part. Which is sort of funny because maybe I should actually, that would be the time if you're committing something to a recording to probably re-intonate. But technically, if you go set a guitar up in another tuning that's radically different than standard or something, you should re-intonate, and you should do the truss rod, and you should do all that stuff because the guitar is going to definitely, the neck will change a little. And, if you go to 11s instead of 10s or something, if you're dropping a whole step, maybe then you don't have as much adjustment as far as like the neck angle, so because you're going to add some tension via the strings that you're going to lose by detuning, right? So you know what I'm saying. But generally speaking, you got to kind of tweak the guitar. The main thing I find too with a tremolo, if it floats anytime you go and do another tuning, that of course changes, and then you need to go in the back and do the springs. So it's best to kind of change the strings, let the guitar settle in a little bit, stretch them out really good, tune it up, look where the bridge is, and do that first. Maybe reset the bridge, reset the truss rod for the new tuning. Do all that stuff. And then the last thing you should do is intonate. check with the intonation, move the bridge saddles and stuff, because you're going to want to do that after you've got everything else set. And then the sort of precision intonation adjustments should be the very last thing you do, in my opinion. Your red HSS seems to be your favorite. Yeah, I would say that's true. That's the guitar I'm getting the most use out of, is my new signature red hum single. I've got the silver one in here right now. The red one's in another room, just in case, because I had it somewhere. But anyway, it's Van Boingo's 50th, evidently. Well, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. I was in the right key. To you. Happy birthday, Van Boingo. Happy birthday to you. Look at that. I was right in the key of C. Wow. How about that? All the white keys. Is the fingerboard bird's eye? Yeah, it's not actually, you can see it's not a separate fingerboard on this guitar. It's all one piece of wood, so it's just a solid piece of bird's eye, this neck. Yeah. What's my favorite travel hack? My favorite travel hack. That's a great question. Generally speaking, having yeah, I'm a fan of airport lounges. So I got to get my scene together as far as, like, credit cards that offer lounge access and all that, because that's a big deal. So that's probably my, whatever you pay for your Amex or Visa, if you can get the Centurion Lounge one, or the an Amex or a Visa that maybe American Airlines, whatever you fly on the most, Delta, they've all got their thing. But if you can get lounge access, that really makes a big difference to me as far as relaxing goes before flights and stuff. Airports are just the draining part of touring is the travel, as most of they've done any of it. It's not the playing, it's the travel. So anything you can do to kind of get a quiet space where you can maybe get some food and not, you like, I don't mind flying. Well, that's not really true. The reality is, if I never flew again, that would be just fine. Like, after all these years of, airplanes and stuff, it's nice to go places after, say, the pandemic, after you haven't been anywhere. It's like, okay, it's exciting to travel again, a little weird and all that. But that quickly kind of fades. And then you're like, all right, airports and people, a lot of close quarters and all that. So anyway, get the cards that let you get into the lounges. It's kind of worth it. You kind of got to have a credit card anyway these days. So you might as well get one that gives you some benefits that you might enjoy. Yeah. So, okay. So that means the airline cards, or the like Amex Centurion Lounge one, or whatever, that gets you, into comfortable zones when you're traveling. What's this question? There's a couple super chats I'm going to grab there, but great chops, lived with the greats, into technology, including software. Okay. Is there a sweet spot for guitarists born of a certain era? I don't really understand the question, but I think the way I'm interpreting it is there a sweet spot for guitarists born of a certain era? I feel like I kind of got that. Like, I feel like I was lucky to grow up and start really getting an interest in guitar around the early 80s, because it was a magical time when it was like, hey, have you heard the new Van Halen album? Like 1984 just came out. No, but I just checked out the new Prince album. It was like Purple Rain just came out. And meanwhile, you've got every great rock band, I mean, from AC/DC to, and we got to remember, these were all young guys then too, right? It was like, the Pretenders and like that kind of music, and the Cure, and like, there was so much cool music coming out that now we hear on the radio every day. Like, and so it was a special time to get excited about guitar. And then moving into the 90s and digital recording and all that stuff, and then and of course the whole, grunge era and everything, that was interesting music too. And then into the 2000s, and everybody kind of being able to do what we do now, like with this stuff, and record and, stuff it's like, it was kind of it's been a magical kind of transition of eras, I feel like. But I guess if you were, started playing in 1960, you would feel that too, because you got to come up through the 60s and then the 70s and then into the 80s and stuff, so I'm happy with the era that I grew up in, and I feel like it was kind of a magic era for guitar and music. Okay, moving way down in the chat. a couple super chats. Philip, what's up? Love the used Casino I picked up other than pickups. Okay, so Rhett's upgrade video and Lawler's harness labor starting at almost 3/4 the value of the guitar. Crazy to spend that much. I don't think so. They're, as you say, I mean, they're a good value anyway, the guitar, the Epis, you know, and then to get the great electronics in there, that's a big part of the sound of the guitar for sure. So you're going to take it to another level. And if I don't really think about things like that. It's more like I think about, like, if it's a guitar, I love the way it plays and it sounds great acoustically, but it's not quite there when I plug it in. I know I can probably get it there through electronics, and then it's going to be a keeper. I'm not a guy that sells a lot, though. You know, it's like I've got guitars that I've had for 20 years, you know, 15 years, 10 years, lots of them. So I don't think about the value or like getting my money back out of it or things. Some guys do. I don't. It's not criticism one way or the other. I'm a bit of a pack rat, so a bit of a hoarder, I guess. You know, I think that it's great to move things along if you don't bond with them. So, you know, your mileage may vary with what I say about this, but maybe the value of the thing and what your resale is going to be more of a factor. So taking that all into account, I'm still a fan of, if the guitar is almost there and you feel like, well, if I just put in some great pickups, then it'll be all there. Then yeah, go for it, you know, for sure. Here's one more here. God help me, thinking of switching from tube amps and pedalboard to quad or Helix. Want to run stereo 3-piece band, which is better for real amp feel and sounds. You know, I like them both, man. I'll tell you what, I got a Helix preset. It's for bass, but recently I've been using this Helix bass preset that's basically just the SVT with the gain cranked all the way up to like 7.5, normal input, and the treble on 10. And the where that I got that was from Demi Lovato's bass player, Leanne Bose. She's out with Britt right now playing with Demi. And if you watch this video of there's a song called Freak, and it's the Vivo. So if you look for Demi Lovato Vivo Freak, it'll pop up, and you can hear Leanne's bass at the beginning. It's a monstrous, badass, dirty bass tone. And I was like, wow, how are you getting that tone? And she sent me the preset, and it's like, oh my God, it's just the stock SVT amp with the stock SVT cab, the way it pulls up, but she just cranked the drive up higher than you might think, cranked the master up pretty good, so it's driving good too, and then turn the treble on 10. And with a P bass, it just sounds like that's a amazing rock bass tone. So there you go. And that's like I think she uses the Stomp, the little HX Stomp. It sounds amazing. So there's a use for Helix. And then like Quad Cortex, I've been using it on tour and having a great time with it and great results. So just long story short, I'm using both of them, you know, for different things, and I get great results. So you kind of got to get your hands on them and decide which one works best for you. You know, form factor and the features, and you know, with the Helix you can't capture amps, so there's that. So you know, if you want to do any of the putting your own amps in the thing, well, there's one choice then. I really bond with the Quad's form factor and the way that it, you know, the drag and drop and the whole. I'm very comfortable using it now. The rotary encoders is great. You know, all that kind of good stuff. But they, you know, I mean, a lot of great examples of Helix being used to great effect out there by people as well. So that's a non-answer, I guess. The answer is I don't know, but the reason is because I truly use both. The video I put out yesterday for the little 1/2 watt, you know, plexi guy, this thing sitting right here on the floor, Dark Gene. Do you guys see the video I did for this? It rips. This thing is badass. It sounds really great. A little 1/2 watt tube amp. So anyways, I used the Leanne bass preset in that video if you want to hear it. That's the bass sound. Joshua says, I love your 2 notes 412 Blackback Dyne IR. Cool. I've been using it with my Captor X. Any tips on what mics you dig? I like the usually a 57 combined with either the 4050, and that's exactly what I use here on my real cab, or combined with a 121, or combined with what's the other condenser that's in there? FET 47. So try all of those, just blend it in. And then what I generally do is set the distance at just about like 10% or something. And I set the off center thing, the off axis thing at just a little bit up, quarter of the way up, so that it's out into the paper a little bit and not right on the center. That's about it. You can pull up the EQ and use it if you need to at that point, depending on your amp and stuff. But you know, that's what I like to do. Also, the 441 is a mic that we included that's kind of a unique mic. I don't see it in a lot of modelers or anything like that. And you know, you try it by itself. Try the 57 and then try the 441 and tell me the 441 on its own isn't like the better option. It's just a great sounding mic. I much prefer a 441 to a 421 on guitar cabs. That would make me a you know, bit of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Outlier. You know, it's just different than what most people do. Most people like 421s on guitar. I find them kind of MIDI and not in a great way. It can be used and they sound sometimes good. It's a great combo as a 57 and a 421 has been used to great effect by a lot of great producers. No question about it. And I've had pretty good results too, but I find I got to place it carefully. And I find I've always got it quite a bit lower in the mix than the 57. So, you know, whereas with other mics, with the 4050 that I use now, the condenser, I can pull that right. I mean, it sounds great on its own. I can blend the 57 equal. I can pull the 57 down lower, you know, sometimes 57 hotter. There's a lot of different sounds in there and it just, you know, I prefer it. So anyways, all right. Let's see. Why do people love the Klon so much? The mid hump is unattractive. Well, I like it. To me, the mid hump just makes single notes big and fat and full, and makes, you know, them bigger than they would be without it. And it's kind of like, you know, the screamer is like upper mids, or screamer's got a more mid or upper mid honk with less lows, and then the Klon sound is a fuller overall through the mids sound. Maybe a bit more natural sounding, a bit more bonded to the amp. Like when I turn it on, I don't feel like it's as pedalish as a screamer. So I feel like it's a bit more like you forget it's on a bit, you know, not like, it's not like, oh, it's really like, you know, part of the amp, but, you know, what else we got here? Let's see. I like the destination, not the flying bit, says John. Sorry, I had to sneeze, obviously. Not to state the obvious. Yeah, I don't like, yeah, the waste of time, you say, John. That's the big part. Now when I do things, like the older I get, those days lost in airports, because it's a whole day, it seems like, whether I'm coming from Fort Wayne, Indiana to LA, or whether I'm coming from London to LA, you know? It's kind of the same amount of time, because if you're coming from Fort Wayne, you got to go change planes through Chicago. You've got a 2-hour layover. And by that point, you know, the time you got to the airport and all in the morning, and then it ends up being the same. It's like, oh, I traveled for 9 hours today. I don't know, maybe not quite, but, you know, I can feel just as beat up flying, you know, internally within the US as I do sometimes on a long international flight where you don't have a connection. So now an international flight where you do have a connection, that's like a real whopper, where you got to like, oh, you know, fly from, you know, to like Newark or something, and then change planes and then get on another one to LA. Like, I mean, if you're coming from Europe or something, I just hate that. Like, then your day's 14 hours, and, you know, not to bitch and moan, but come on, you know, after a certain amount of time, like in, you know, airports and planes and stuff, you do start to feel like, what am I doing? Like, it's like, so, I don't know. It's a lot of, you know, a lot of flying. So what product do I use for my hair color? This is me, dude, right now. That is my stuff within. You can see the gray coming in there. I got no, not that I'm opposed to it. Sometimes I stick stuff in my hair, but I haven't actually for about a year more, probably. It's just, that's what I look like. I got a lot of gray in my beard, more gray in my beard than I do in my hair, but the hair is happening. It's pretty, you know, you can see it, like you can see it right there. It's coming in, man. I'm lucky, man. I got lucky with the hair. My dad had no hair on top by the time he was like 25, 26 years old. It all got up and left. So I was ready for that to happen. And it didn't. I don't know why. Just skipped a generation or something. let's see. That video you did with the amp sounded great. Thanks. Yeah, it was fun. How do you think that compares to Marshall and a box pedals in front of a clean amp? You know, I mean, it's a different thing altogether because it's an amp. You got to plug it into a cabinet. It's not loud. Clean amp that's up louder is going to be different. But I have to say I mean, it's very amp like because it's an amp. It really sounded, if you listen to it, like I don't think anybody would have known that it wasn't a big amp, and that's a pretty big testament, right, to how good it sounds. It's like if you can fool the mics and stuff. Just turn up the mic pre's a little louder because it ain't loud. But the tone was there, I feel like, with the amp. He made a great thing. It's like a great little, it's very reasonably, but most of the comments too, people are like, I was expecting it to be expensive, and then I go look and it's like under $400. It's like, yeah, it's not a lot of money for a little, it's as much as some pedals. So it was a lot of fun to play through. Why do you suppose there hasn't been any significant advances in impulse response? Well, there sort of has. I would say I don't think that's exactly true. With Celestion, and I think Dyne-IRs are supposed to do this, but with Celestion, certainly, they've gone and changed the way that supposedly their IRs respond, depending, like input dependent, much like a speaker. So in other words, the IR sound changes as you hit it harder with more level or more signal from, you roll down the guitar volume, and much like a speaker, because that's the only thing that doesn't change really with IRs, right? It's speaker distortion and things like that are going to happen when you're hitting the speaker harder with, more level, less level, right? More input, less input. So Dyne-IRs from 2 notes and whatever Celestion's calling theirs, I can't remember. Sorry. Whatever Celestion's calling theirs, they have a similar, a kind of dynamic response that is supposedly happening. So now beyond that, I, to be honest, once I started using them many years ago, didn't really feel like this has much further to improve. I mean, I felt like this sounds really, really, really close to the mics on the cab. And this is going back 10, 12 years. When I made my own IR and then I compared it to the cabinet, it's like, well, that's really, really, really close to the same sound. So, as far as a significant advance in technology, I don't know how it would be that much closer to the real thing. So I thought it was good from the get-go, is what I'm saying. And in a mix, blended in a song or blended, it's just like, I think a lot of it is kind of like, don't worry about the wrong stuff, like when I see, last night, I mean, watching Rammstein, they and, I think the one guitar player is using a Kemper, and Paul is Sans amp. That's what he's using. It's like because it sounds amazing in the PA. So, like they don't overthink if something works, I guess. And I think a lot of pros are like that. It's like, well, it's working, sounds great. I still get paid the same. I can go cash my check, let's move on. So that's the way that a lot of guys that are pros, like I don't hear a lot of pros, people that are out touring and doing things and maybe using Axe FXs or Quad Cortexes or things like that. I don't hear them talking like, boy, I wish the impulse response technology was getting better. That's not something they say, I'm not trying to pick on you about it either, Harry. I'm just stating the kind of straight dope. It's like it works and it sounds good. And if you could dial it in and you can go to work with it, then I don't really think about it much beyond that. Like but that's the thing is, I don't know what else would improve. Like, what are you missing would be my question, actually. Like, what do you feel like needs to improve? Because that would be I'd be curious, like if you feel like there's something that should get better, with them. Because I don't really feel that way, but maybe there's something that you can articulate that you think, and then I can think about it for a second. Okay, what else? Let's see. Thinking about using my HX Stomp for the amp models, plugging it into the front of a clean amp. Does it produce usable sounds? If I was you, I would plug it into, like you might get great results that way. I would prefer to plug it into the power amp return, effect return of a clean amp, and just use the power amp, because you've kind of got the preamp baked into the model. So you're sort of running a preamp into a preamp which can result in, slightly weird tone, mid-range, etc. Something, so I would suggest if you've got an amp with an effect loop, using that and running straight into the power amp return. But your mileage may vary, and there's ways to get amps to sound more flat, so that when you do something like that, you can experiment with the tone controls. I think on like a Fender tone stack, you're supposed to do something like crank the mids and turn the bass and treble on 0, something like that, and that makes it as flat as possible, the EQ. Does that sound right? I think on the Tech 21, we're talking a lot about Tech 21 today, but on their website, when they detail how to use their fly rigs, which are kind of preamps in pedals, they talk about a way to set the tone controls on your average amplifier so that it is kind of as flat as possible, and you're kind of getting the most sort of power amp only like response. So you might want to look at that, on their maybe it's like owner's manuals or whatever setup tips for using the fly rig products from Tech 21. When we do something with Doug Pinnock again, doesn't he have a new SIG pedal? Does he? Does he have a new small version or something? That's interesting. I love Doug, man. And, Ty and just King's X in general. I've listened to about half of the new King's X, and I love it. There's a lot of great stuff on there, and Ty's playing some ripping guitar. I'm going to look here. For the Tech 21. Maybe I did see that he's got a new small version. Is that right? I'm not seeing. Looks all kind of the same as far as I can. I'm not seeing a different form to his pedal. It looks like the same sort of fly rig, just like Paul Leonard's version, I think. So I thought maybe he had a smaller one, kind of like, how Getty's got a more stomp box style one now. So maybe that is what you saw, but I'm not seeing that one. I just did a search. Anyway, here's a super chat. To run stereo, is it better to use 2 full range flat response cabs or a stereo power amp and 2 guitar speakers with quad cortex or helix? The answer is it really depends on you. I personally kind of dig the guitar cabinet approach. That's me. So I like to run something like the quad with the 2 sets of outputs both working. So one left-right output would feed the PA with IRs, and the other left-right output would feed a power amp and some guitar cabinet or 2 guitar cabinets. That's what I just did on the 5 for Fighting tour, and you can see me detail that rig in my latest rig rundown. That's video on my channel. I found that great for me, very natural, easy to set up. Didn't feel like I had to do that much tweaking at all. Like, set up the sounds in my studio and then just went to the first gig, and it was kind of like, sounds good. I didn't have a separate EQ or anything on the output feeding the power amp and the cabinets behind me. It just sounded like, I was like, yeah, that sounds like the amp sound that I want coming out of those cabinets. Now, with full range flat response cabinets, it's more like not having it's a monitor, so it's like having your guitar pumped through the wedges, if you at a gig. Sometimes it sounds good, and it's like, yeah, that's nice wedge stay, sounds really good actually, but sometimes it's bright, and it really depends on the wedge. Sometimes it's just kind of weird sounding. I don't know, it's a little more like your guitar coming through studio monitors. So if you're used to that sound, like your guitar coming through a studio monitor and sitting there playing that way, you probably could do that and be comfortable with it if you found a monitor that's got a nice response, like your studio monitors. But the response of the monitor is just like a studio monitor. You might hate NS10s, but you might really like Genelecs, or you might hate Mackeys, but you might really like KRK monitors or something. So you need to search for the full range monitor that sounds good to you, because full range flat response doesn't really mean flat response. They've all got their own little sound to them. The best sounding monitor I had on tour for guitar, that on the last 5 for Fighting run, because I was using house wedges every night, I would get a little bit in the wedge too. The best sounding one was a cheap Yamaha. There was EAWs, there was like different, there was a lot of good sounding ones I had, but there was something about this Yamaha where the top end was a little more muted. It's probably just not as good of a high end driver, but for guitar, it sounded great. Like just pulling up the quad in the monitor, it was like, ooh, that sounds really good. You don't have to EQ the wedge or anything. I like the way it sounds. It sounds full, and it's got a warmth to it on the top end that I really like. Because sometimes when they're too clean and crispy on the top end, coming back out of a wedge, it can sound, you know, like, ooh, it's a little, sounds a little bright. So, yeah, thanks for bearing with me here. I feel like I'm a little like for those that are just joining, I went to the Rammstein show last night at LA Coliseum, which looked like this. It was unbelievable. I can't tell you enough how unbelievable it was. It was really unbelievable. Can I show you the pyro? Can I just show you the pyro? Just check this out, man. I think this is the... I can find the part in the video where there's like... Yeah, here we go. What the hell, man? Oh my God. Isn't music fun? It's so crazy. I love it. It's so much fun. I feel like I'm 10 years old watching that. It's just... Oh God. Okay. Mike says he just listened to the Demi tune, the Freak tune. Yeah, if you watch so those Vivo performances, this is a Demi Lovato. I was talking about a Helix bass preset that sounds amazing. And if you watch the Demi Lovato Freak performance from Vivo, that's the bass tone you're hearing on there, Leanne's bass tone. It's a HX Stomp with a great preset that she made. And I had to get it from her, and I love it. It's like, sounds really good. But yeah, it does sound like a crank SVT. Sounds really cool. Those Vivo performances are really interesting because they're live. So you go on there and you basically, I mean, what you do is you go and you do like a few takes, 4 takes of the song. They take video of each take, and then it's somewhat edited, you know, like, I mean, somebody go through and professionally mix it and everything, but it's live, you know, it's actually like a different version than the record version. So that's her playing bass on there. It's not that she's not miming to the album or something, you know, that's the way the tone sounds that day. So I really like those videos because they're like a kind of a curated live performance, I guess, you know, but that's what they are. It's pretty cool. Zipping around in the chat here, on the fence between my Archer and Rockway Archer, finding the Archer easier to manage as a boost. Yeah, I like them both. Steve's pedals, the Rockway, it was cool too. But I quite like the regular one, actually, with the Jeff Beck mods. Is the one that I really bonded with and have used for probably going on 5-6 years now, at least on my pedal board. And I don't ever really feel like getting rid of it. You know, it's always like, yeah, I turn it on. It's like, yeah, that does exactly what I want it to do. And I've become very comfortable with it. So that's the one I like, the Rocket with the Beck mods. It's slightly different caps or something in there, you know, resistors. I don't know. Yeah. So, let's see. My son got stuck in Amsterdam. We're talking about flying here, and I'm bouncing around a lot today, but got stuck in Amsterdam, made the most of it, met a friend, and did a little sightseeing. Yeah, Amsterdam's a great... I've had that happen too, where I had to stay overnight in Amsterdam because of a missed connection. Like the flight I was leaving on from Germany to Amsterdam was late, so then I was going to miss my connection in Amsterdam. So they said, sorry, sir, you'll have to stay in Amsterdam. We bumped you to the next day. Oh, okay. Got a hotel, paid for it and everything, and then I went into Amsterdam, hung out. It's a beautiful city. Just hang out and, you know, eat, walk around, have a good time. So it's cool. You know, beats having a layover in, I don't know, what would suck. I don't know. You're not so fun. Your whack city of choice. Okay. Let's see. There's another super chat, so I'm headed down to the bottom of the chat there. Discovered the Telecaster was never my thing, or so I thought. So in love with the middle. Yeah, middle on a Tele is very special. And bridge pickup cuts. Do you still play yours? I do. My old Tele is a great, man. It's got some dynamic 3D sounding pickups in it. I had to replace the pickups in it because the original bridge pickup, the base plates on old Teles can warp and then they go microphonic and they're useless. So that happened, and I've got an intermittent neck pickup for that guitar. It's like, so maybe the lines are broken halfway through or something, so it works sometimes and not other times. John Sir said he could maybe fix it without having to do a rewind, but Anyway, so the pickups were sort of toast when I got the guitar, and I had Ron Ellis make me a set of his 5060 with the mid-tall neck, I think. I can't imagine a better sounding pickup. I don't miss having the originals or whatever. It's unbelievable. So, Dave Friedman, are you here? What's up, dude? Did you have fun last night? I had fun. I didn't get home till 3. It was crazy. It was crazy. There you are. It was great. It was great, wasn't it? And how cool was Paul? What a nice guy. Like, couldn't have been a nicer guy. Those folks are really sweet. So, Pete, will you be going to the Taylor Hawkins show? I don't know. Dave? Dave's laughing right now. Are you still using the Tricera chorus? I'm not particularly in a rig right now using it or anything. Haven't been, but it is a great sounding pedal, and I've turned a lot of people onto that pedal that have asked me, like, what's a great, and I said, just get this, and they do, and they like it. So it's pretty incredible. So, Dave says that's why I made my wedges darker sounding. Yeah, I understand. We were talking about wedges a little bit earlier. And yeah, darker is good for guitar for sure. A little on the darker side. Maybe it'd be nice to have a wedge within a, very tweakable, adjustable top end or something, so that you could just back down the horn, or maybe, it had some sort of low pass filter or something that you could engage, like that's just simple analog filter or something. So for guitar players, that might be a nice thing in a full range wedge. But anyways, to be honest, the powered Yamahas that are around $500-600 quite liked the sound, thought they were great. That I got one on the road, and I remember the monitor guy who was very good. He said, I don't know what this is going to be like today. I got this Yamaha wedge. I tried it. I thought it sounded great. It's like, that'll be just fine, So, yeah. Okay. Lauren said Phil McKnight just did an interview with Doug Pinnick. That's cool. I'll have to go watch that. And you thought it was for a new pedal. Yeah, I don't know if he's got I think it's just his original pedal that's out still. But anyways. Okay. Here's a question about the Sur Reactive Load IR. I think there's any interest or improvement going up to the newer Reactive Load IR versus the old Reactive Load plus IR and the DAW. I just find it being all in one very convenient. So I like that, about it. The original one is just fine, and I used it for years and you're going to be able to use, if you think that it makes a difference, you're going to be able to use longer IRs and all that in your DAW. So there's some advantages even, I guess, to not using the newer Reactive Load IR version. The old one's just fine in many ways. There's some, it's a passive box, I think, and so there's something with the output that's different on the original one versus the new one. The new one, I think, will drive, I can't remember exactly what the deal is, and I don't want to screw it up by saying, but you might want to look at, I just think what it is the old one is maybe a little more sensitive to the input that you're plugging it into. So I always had no problem plugging it straight into the line input on the back of my UA Apollo, although I think I needed to use an ISO transformer to avoid a buzz. Whereas the newer Reactive Load IR is all transformer isolated and all that. So there's that. Just with the old one, you might have, it's a passive thing, and you might have to, be a little more careful about what you're plugging it into and whether or not you get a ground loop and stuff. That's all. So that's one thing. But sound-wise, the load portion is exactly the same. And if you just sort out the, impedance and driving whatever kind of line level that you're running into or whatever, via, you might need an ISO transformer Palmer or something in line. If you get a ground loop, beyond that, it's exactly the same. It works really well. So, Friedman sent me a $2 super sticker. Thanks, bud. You didn't have to do that. I appreciate it. How late did you stay? I stayed about another hour beyond when you left. Dave and I were hanging out till you were there till at least 1 or 1:30, right? So, it, continued to be interesting. Actually, we sort of closed the place, actually, I think, but when everybody was kind of leaving was when we left. And I had to get, I'd parked my car in downtown LA. Going to shows in LA can be complicated, you guys, because sometimes it's like parking and like, it's just a chaotic and expensive and stuff, like trying to, so it might be more easier to just Uber. So Dave and I and his lovely wife Dina, we had sushi before the show in downtown LA in Little Tokyo. Managed to get into a place on a Saturday night. That was good without a reservation. Had a great meal, and then grabbed an Uber. It's about a 20-25 minute drive, and then got to the show. Then I had to get back at like 2 a.m. to my car in Little Tokyo so that I could go home. Yeah, so which was fine. Made it back, and that's cool. All right, that's not interesting. You guys want to hear about gear? Let's see. Bought my 4th Shure guitar today, an Alt T. Great guitar besides my 2 classic S Antiques and T Antique. You might be partially to blame. I'm sorry. Alt T is a great guitar. I use mine a lot. It's a great kind of workhorse rhythm guitar with the Thornbuckers in there, and then the kind of more airy hollow body sound. The split positions work great. Quite enjoy that guitar. So that's cool, man. Totally different than a, say an older solid body one with a rosewood board or something. Different guitar. What's a good D-style pedal? Ford. Okay, I got one for you. How about this? You asked for a D-style pedal. I give you the mother of all Dumble pedals. Look at that thing. D-type tube preamp. Look at that. There it is. It's basically the whole shebang in a pedal with a big old transformer. So I have not done a video on this yet, but it's coming. Got the Jazz Rock switch. Look at that thing. Isn't that crazy? I've got a number of these sort of amp in a box pedals around here. Here's another one that I've got to do soon. The Carl Martin Ampster. Supposedly what Johnny Marr's using for fly rig stuff on the road now, with a Boss multi-effect in front of it. And this is his amp sound, DI to the PA. Everybody's doing this stuff now, aren't they? It's wild. Here's another one that I got to do. This KSR. This is a kind of preamp in a box. That's going to kill, I think. It's going to probably sound really good. So, got a lot of videos to make, guys. A lot. Anyways, a lot of them out there. If you're just talking simple Dumble in a box sort of pedal, I think kind of the Dude from Rocket was cool when I tried it. The Symbol, that was cool. Was that Mad Professor? I think. How about the Dumbleoid? That was one from Japan that I tried that I quite liked. What pickup did you put in? I think you're talking about my Telly. Mine, a Ron Ellis 5060 set. Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever jammed with or know any of the guys from Def Leppard? I wouldn't say. I met Phil Collin once. I can't claim to know any of those guys, but they seem like good dudes. He seems like a great guy. I'd love to meet him and talk to him further, because he lives in Southern California. I know he's a surfer, super healthy dude. He seems like he's got his head on straight. Would love to meet him again. Know if it's common for a custom shop Les Paul bridge to be off-center, requiring saddles to be grooved off-center to align to strings on the neck. I guess that could happen. Things like that drive me a little crazy. It wouldn't surprise me, but I guess it doesn't really matter if the bridge is set up just right. But yeah, that would be a nice thing to have them perfectly aligned, right? We hear about these things sometimes. These things happen. It's a good question for a tech, I mean, if the thing stays in tune, it sounds good, and the bridge is slotted correctly and stuff, I wouldn't worry about it beyond that, to be honest, unless it really drives you crazy looking at it or something. Yeah. You said Joe Satriani there, Krager, on Friday night at the Orpheum. That's cool. I love Joe. I'm a fan. He's great, man. Okay. And D. Marty says, I got to run. Thanks, Pete, for all the questions and talk. Thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it. What's the difference to having a one-piece maple neck versus maple neck with maple fretboard? Purely cosmetic. I've never known that myself. But luckily, I've got powerful friends that that I can ask these questions to. So let's ask John and see what he says. What do you think the advantages are to having maple neck versus maple neck with maple fingerboard? Let's see, I better say one piece maple neck. Sorry, just erasing that so that it makes sense when I send the text. And he'll get back to us. Jeremy does, unless he's out in the garden. Let's see. Are there cool 3 pickup guitars out there that other than a Strat? Well, the first one that came to mind is Brian May with his 3 pickup, Red Special, or say the Peter Frampton Les Paul, right? The Phoenix Les Paul. That's pretty cool. Les Paul Custom. Pretty darn cool. I see somebody else said that. Stealth Parrot said that. The Frampton guitar. Friedman says node via the ground thing opposite. Newer is not transformer isolated. That's interesting with Sir Reactive load. But I clearly remember using on my original Reactive load needing to use an ISO transformer going from the unit to my interface. And I don't on the new one. So I don't know. I don't have any ground loop problems with the new one in my rig. With however I've got it set it up, it works perfect just with a TRS cable going straight into my patch bay. So if there was a loop, I would think, but it would be the other way. So I don't know. Who knows about these things? This is why I keep isolation transformers around, just in case I have problems. Sometimes they crop up and you seem to need them. But anyways, your mileage may vary, I guess, right? So John Sir says it's easier to get correct. This is the answer about the maple neck versus solid maple versus a cap maple fingerboard on a maple neck. He says easier to get a correct truss rod geometry when you don't have to blind drill a hole to meet another hole. Okay. You could also say that having the lamination provides some extra strength. So overall, you prefer having a separate board? I'm just confirming that. Sounds like he does. Sounds like he likes the extra board, but that kind of makes sense. Having a lam provides extra strength, versus all the wood, one piece of wood, all the grain going one way, all that stuff. If you kind of, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. What else we got here? Let's see. Just reading all your comments, questions here. The coffee fund. Did you send me something for my coffee fund, Stealth Parrot? Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, John says yes. I think maple fingerboard on maple neck, because when you're dealing with the same thing on every neck, truss rod geometry is very accurate from end to end with no kinks guaranteed. Cool. So he thinks it's better to have the and you do tend to see more of that, I think. More guitars that have a separate maple cap than you do the one piece maple neck thing. So this guitar has a roasted one piece, so it's going to be, Sir, by the way, I don't believe they will do a bird's eye that's not roasted, because you're asking for trouble with instability and things like that. So, so if you've got a bird's eye one piece maple neck, roast it, I think, because it's going to be more stable. This neck's very stable, doesn't seem to move. The roasted thing really works for stability. I don't know about tone or anything, but I'm telling you, the stability thing is a factor that with all my roasted guitars, it always seems to be solid, So this is about the original Reactive load. I do remember John saying the older passive Reactive load has a higher output impedance that requires plugging into higher input impedance. Yeah, like I remember running it into the low impedance input on the back of my Apollo. That seemed to work fine, but it also seemed to work fine running it into the guitar level high impedance input on the front of the Apollo. I didn't really hear an appreciable difference in sound at all. It seemed to work just fine. So But, you know, your mileage may vary. John said it might be better plugging it into the high impedance input, something about loss of low end or something if you're plugging into an input that's too low of an impedance due to an impedance mismatch. So just something to consider. In practice, I never had issues. I used it to record a lot of stuff. So here's a couple super chats. What do you generally prefer for pedals, a Fender or cleanish Marshall like a Friedman Dirty Shirley? Most of the time, Fender for pedals or Vox. You know, for running. If we're talking about overdrives and distortions, I mean, there is no better clean channel I've tried than the PT100, because between the two settings with the bright on or the bright off, it's a very kind of optimized Fender clean. And if I kind of set the tone control somewhere around 5, or maybe, you know, bass on 4, mids on 5, treble maybe 5 to 6, and then depending on the pedal I'm running into it with the bright in or the bright out, I get a good sound out of most overdrives and distortions that way. It's a great pedal platform. The original, you know, it's born out of the original OD100 amp. And, you know, John will tell you, anybody would tell you that it's a pretty much straight up Fender twin kind of circuit. In the PT100, we tweaked it. So John said it was somewhere in between where we ended up with like super reverb and twin reverb. It was a little different than the original OD100. But that's my main go-to. Marshall, a Dirty Shirley is actually one of my favorite sounds out of that amp, and that is one of my favorite amps that Dave makes. Is as a pedal platform, and turning the master on 10 and bringing the preamp volume up to like 2 is a really beautiful sound on a Dirty Shirley with all the EQ kind of around 5, maybe the presence up a bit, maybe the treble up a bit, but that's a really nice pedal platform as well. And, you know, it's born out of a kind of I do believe a JCM 800 style sort of front end that's probably tweaked the way Dave wants to, and then a more like a 45 JTM 45 power amp. That's what the Dirty Shirley kind of the topology, I think. And it just, for whatever reason, as a lot of people would attest to with a original JCM 800, you know, you can run into the low input and it's a beautiful pedal platform, works really well. So that's a good sound too, you know. But you know, it's nice to have a switchable bright, I will say, for pedals running into a clean sound, because it's, you know, I'm finding that's the biggest thing I vary is whether or not that bright switch is on or off. I always kind of set the amp the same tone control wise, the PT100, but the thing that's going to change with pedals is that bright, you know, because you're bypassing, you know, the volume control, sending a bunch of high end at a certain point, you know, a certain value through that pot. And when you do that and you hit that with a pedal, it kind of blows up and tends to accentuate, you know, depending on how the pedal's tuned. It's just, it can be a fine line. Some pedals will not work at all. I'll give you an example. Actually, I've got an orange distortion here. Supposed to make a video for these. This guy here, this is a vintage style, you know, it's kind of a, you know, 70s style orange distortion that I don't know if it's a totally new design or if they've reissued something, but the goal is kind of vintage, you know, more like maybe more like a color sound overdriver or something from the old days, right? This does not work into the PT100 with the bright on. No go. Sounds like a swarm of bees. So that tells me that it's a, you know, maybe like a hard clipping circuit with the top end is just straight out all the way with nothing filtered out. And there's not a tone control in this pedal. I can get a good usable sound out of it, but I got to turn the bright off on the amp and then, you know, dial it in that way. And then it's got kind of a vintage orange sort of flavor to it, I would say, with a big bottom end and, you know, kind of vintage fuzzy sort of fuzzy distortion, I would say, you know, more. Coffee, beer, taco fun from Krager. Super chat there. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. What else? Ben talking about the Dumble pedal that I showed a few minutes ago with the big transform on it and stuff. Yeah. What is that pedal called? It's called a Halen amplification from Chandler, Arizona, and it is a D-type tube preamp. Is the name. Halen, M-A-L-I-N. So you can check it out. The video will be coming pretty soon from that. I got to get it done. Okay. Yeah. Steve says the Dark Gene was pretty great. Yeah, really impressive sounding, I have to say. Did a nice job on it. Have I received the GK amp? So last week I impulse bought a GK amp on the show. You guys may have seen. Oh boy. No, the guy is actually a touring musician, I think, and he was on tour, and he's like, "I'm really sorry, I'm out of town, but I can ship it next week." And I said, "That's fine. So send it when you get back. I'm in no rush." Yeah. Michael Schenker is playing next Saturday. I know that actually. Yeah, that he's playing next week. I would love to see that actually. We'll see. We shall see. Maybe we'll make it to that. He's great, man. Amazing guitar player. Yeah. Okay. David says the Dark Gene half watt was really cool. Yeah, great, fun video. I really enjoyed the tune too. Like that was fun to do. And yeah. Have you ever had any hollow body feedback issues when touring? Yes, a little bit. I've got a Dave Grohl and DG 335, and I've got a original 63. Didn't have too much problems with the original because I was playing with Melissa Etheridge and not using as much gain and stuff, and not as much stage volume. But with the DG, I was playing with Chris Cornell. I had a higher volume on stage, and sometimes it would be a little whoo. So I would stuff the body with towels or foam. I had different stuff in there at different times. That always helps. But yeah, if you want to, you can stick some soft stuff in there, some foam or whatever, and just make sure you kind of do it in a strategic way so you can get it out if you need to. It can be a pain in the butt if it gets stuffed in there and then it gets, it's like difficult to get out of the guitar. I've discovered that. But yeah. It's not, a 335 is, it's cool, I'm sure if Dave Friedman's still here, he'll attest to the fact he's good friends with a guy named Dave Black from a band called Seduce from Detroit. And I believe Dave played an original 335 and work that feedback. It was part of the sound, of his style. It can be a really cool thing. Eddie Van Halen loved 335s. I think everybody just said it made him look too much like an old rocker or whatever when he played it. So he didn't use it live. But I think the original pickup that was in the Frankenstein, or one of them anyway, one of them came out of the 335. Maybe the one that was rewound by Seymour. I think the story was that was pulled out of the 335, so early 60s, so interesting, Do you know Ron Thorn? I don't. I should though, right? You would think, I know of him. I've seen his builds and stuff, but I don't know. I think we had an email exchange once about something years ago. I'm just remembering now. Was it crazy for Aldo Nova to put an Explorer neck headstock on a Gibson Les Paul, or was it super cool? I think it's kind of super cool. I mean, I love that era though. So, and Aldo Nova was cool. Did I ever tell you guys my Aldo Nova story? When I first moved to LA, I lived at the Oakwood over like by Burbank, sort of. And it's where a lot of people came down to stay when they were making records in LA, because you could rent an apartment there, corporate housing style, by the month. It was furnished, almost like a furnished apartment, So bands would put up people there. So there was a lot of people staying there. I remember Ray Gillen, Badlands staying there. I remember, I've talked about this before, the people that stayed there. Nirvana stayed there right after I moved out to make Nevermind. That's where they lived when they were making Nevermind. But anyways, I got to know Aldo Nova for a second because he was there making a record. I'm like this 19-year-old kid from Canada, and he was staying at the Oakwood making a record. So it was funny. He used to hang out by the pool, and he would try and give me knowledge about the music business and tell me that, I remember him saying like, I don't know, man. Like he seemed kind of grumpy. He was like, I don't know, man, this is kind of my last, if it doesn't work out after this, I'm just out of this business, that kind of thing. Kind of like, I'm giving it one more shot and make another record, see what happens, That was his vibe. But I always liked, I love Fantasy. That was a killer tune, right, that descending guitar part, which I've copied in a few songs. Totally get. Anyway, some of you don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Fantasy by Aldo Nova, great tune. Come on. Let's see what else we got here. I'll move on. Which version of the power stage do you use? The 170 or the 200? I think the 200 is the one I have. I'm pretty sure. I thought it was a 170, and I looked at it and it said 200 on it, so I was wrong. But yeah, it's the 200, I think. Yeah, the 170 is a 3-knob, right? The 200 has the more full EQ. So yeah, I got to get a stereo version, or I've been asking somebody to make, like, I was using a Matrix that crapped out on me on the road, right? That's great. Matrix sounds really good. Too big, right? The rack thing and stuff. All I really need is a smaller, if it's mono, if it's stereo, great. If you can't do that, mono, great. Make a great mono block power amp, solid state. I've talked to people about doing this. Nobody seems interested. Hint, hint, Dave, or anybody that's out there that makes stuff. Somebody make a Matrix style mono power amp that's in a small transportable thing that I can throw in my suitcase. Please, will you make it? Because there isn't anything out there that's Matrix style. There's the Duncan, which works well, and I like the Duncan, and I've used it, but it is Class D, and I would love a not Class D power amp. Just if somebody would make one, maybe it's Duncan that'll make it. Something that's light, reasonably light, and has that guitar-like response of the Matrix sounds good to plug. If you're reamping or if you're plugging something in, it's I don't know what it is about it, but there's something about it that just has a nice, it's like, yeah, that sounds familiar, comfortable. It sounds like a good guitar power amp. And it's, just happens to be very light and transportable. Can I use my old Boss chorus to get the later Van Halen tone, or do I need a different pitch type pedal? It'll get you the diver down sound, sort of, although there's probably Eventide on that record too, but the kind of obvious chorusing that's going on Pretty Woman and stuff, that's a different sound. I think that it's a different thing. It's a still chorus. Detune is not chorusing really. Chorusing has the what is it, constantly sort of, the moving oscillator or whatever, right? Where the rate of a chorus, it's constantly doing its thing, right? Whereas on a detune, it's not. It's just you're taking a portion of the signal and introducing it back into the signal, but it's detuned, so it's like the whole dry signal converted into a wet detuned version and then blended in, right? And it has a different sound. Your own playing and bending and the way that you kind of do things is, and then whether or not you delay that is also, that's the parameters on an Eventide are basically, you've got the detune or uptune amount, and then you've got a delay where you can introduce that signal, anywhere from 0 milliseconds on out to, whatever you want to do. It, I guess, has a more chorusing like quality, the if you set that a little longer, that delay time, but it's still not chorus. You don't have that rate going on, where it's got that, like any kind of like if you really notice it, if you just hold a dyad or a note or something, on a chorus, you'll hear turn up the depth and then turn up the rate, and you hear that, really crazy, right? If you turn that stuff down and you got a more subtle and slower rate and all that, then yes, I guess it sort of starts to sound more like just detune. But it's, with the constant sweep going on of the rate, it's doing a different thing. So the easiest way to hear it, to know exactly what I'm talking about and what's going on is, okay, if you were to take a Eventide and you were to crank the mix all the way up on 10, it would just sound like a detuned version of your original guitar, right? If you take a chorus effect and you get rid of all the dry and then you just listen to the effect, it's vibrato. It's going, right? It's actually a chorus. All a chorus is a vibrato with some dry mixed in, because it's the kind of like dissonance or beating of the rate and that vibrato effect against the static dry signal that creates the chorus effect. Take away all the dry, you get vibrato. There's nothing but pitch fluctuation going on, and it doesn't have that washy sound. It just has a kind of like a vibrato type effect, like you're actually vibratoing a note, so that's the difference. Where, yeah, a detune will just, if you take away all the dry, you're going to end up with a completely detuned version of it. It won't really sound like modulation. So that's why the three effects are all different. I hope that makes sense. What do we got here? Your solos are invented. Thanks. How do you break out of the pentatonic box? just don't play pentatonic. How do you think in modes? Any tips? Okay, well, all you got to do is add a couple notes to your scale. So, I'll give you an example. So you break it literally, like the simplest thing is to think of it like this. So if this is your, in the key of A, and that's your pentatonic. Right? Instead of doing that, let's add the 9, or the 2. So if that's the only note we added, right? 7th fret, the B note on the first string. Now it doesn't sound like that anymore. So let's go from 7, let's go from the 9, right, or the 2 of the scale down to the 7 and over top of a static A. Right? Now it doesn't sound like pentatonic because we've added that. And there's that 9 down there. So even just that one note. And start your solo there. Like, so if the, now I just played a little chromatic thing, right? So I went up to the 7, to the 6, to the flat 6, to the 5th, right? So starting a solo on the 9. Don't start on the root. Don't bend there, or don't do that. Go and just hang to the 7, right? We finally resolved and went to the 1 there. And then right? So just by introducing a little chromaticism and maybe one note can really influence kind of the sound. So is that helpful? I hope so. Copy that stuff. You should do a demo on the Sir Reb Beach guitar. Actually, I would love to do that. I would love to do like a review of it or a video demo. I know it's great. So that would be fun though, with the Koa and the EMGs is a totally different thing than anything I have. Yeah. Yeah. Down to the bottom of the chat. You can chromatic all the way to the 4th measure. You can chromatic everywhere. I mean, that's kind of the magic of starting on a good note and ending on a good note. The stuff you play in the middle is you can futz around and make it sound like if you start on a good note, you end on a good note. Everything that happens in the middle can just sort of make you sound like more sophisticated, or it'll sound like, oh, like what's he doing? And part of the key too is a lot of, if you want to sound a little jazzy and stuff, is don't play too many notes in one direction. Like reverse yourself and play chromatic so that you're kind of moving backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, and then resolving on good notes eventually, starting on a good note, backwards and forwards, a lot of chromaticism in the middle. And any note is kind of fair game a lot of the time, like depending on the progression you're playing. If it's a real sort of if the progression is really sort of like the chords have like really distinct where there's maybe a key change going on with a chord or something, you kind of have to hit some chord tones when it changes, what I'm talking about, then it's cool. But if you're just jamming on a static A like that, you can play anything. It's like you can infer all kinds of stuff and then just kind of bring the listener back around to the key, with occasional resolving on the right notes, so it's kind of wide open, yeah, play notes out of order. But yeah, one thing I remember Scott Henderson saying once, and this is great advice. He said, if you want to sound like you're playing outside or playing, like, he goes, I just put my fingers sometimes where I know they're not supposed to go. You don't have to like know exactly what you're doing all the time. You can just kind of, I thought, God, you do that? Like, and I know he probably knows, like, he's a pretty deep dude when it comes, but that's a kind of a way to like, when I try that, it kind of works. If I want to sound like I'm playing outside, sometimes I'll just move up a half step from where I know I'm supposed to be and play. And then we'll play a few notes and then wind back down into the right key and resolve. And then it sounded like, ooh, that was cool. You know, it's like occasional resolving on the right notes, as Christian sounds like his playing. I mean, really, I'm not a very, you know, I have a little bit of theoretical knowledge, but not that much. I'm mainly using my ear and stuff. So, you know, love the tips on building a solo. Yeah, you know, not starting on the, here's a couple key things. Don't start on the downbeat all the time. Leave space at the beginning. And then when you come in, don't come in on a chord tone. Come in on, say, the 9 or something, you know, and then go down to the 7, like I did, you know, and then back to the 9, down to the 7, and then resolve finally to the root. And it'll sound like, it's like, oh, you know, it's a little more interesting than, you know, always been. I mean, I'm guilty all the time of playing the root too much, probably, you know, but I actively try and look for ways to not do it. Yeah. So I'll let EVH. I mean, Eddie was the master of, you know, of the, you know, let's look at that one run in I'm the One, right? And there's that, you know, it's up an octave, but I'm going to play it down an octave so you guys can see it. You know, that kind of thing that he does, right? Yeah. Right, that whole thing. So it's starting on the, I mean, this is definitely, it's an A minor, you know, but he starts the run on the major third, right, of A, you know, the C sharp on the 5th string, and then he just plays a pattern. You know, what is that? Right, you've got the flat 5, the 5th, and then the 6th, right, and then major 7. Right, it doesn't make sense musically what he's doing, but it goes by so fast and resolves that it, you know, when you're doing it that quick and stuff, it's got a sort of sophisticated sound to it. But then when you realize he's just doing something that kind of falls under the fingers easily, you know, it's kind of neat, you know. So yeah, so okay, let's see. Hello from Cleveland. Hello, Cleveland. I said it. I had to, sorry. Brian, thanks for all you do for Guitar Nerdum. Thanks for being here, man. We've got 413 people online. Thank you guys for all being here each and every week. You come and hang out with me, and I appreciate it. I do. Clear packing tape over the F-holes. Ooh, I never thought of that. To minimize feedback in hollow bodies. Remove after use. My only fear would be it might damage a lacquer finish. I wouldn't worry about it on poly. It'll come off. But on lacquer, on my old 335, that guitar seems to just attract stuff into the paint that, like, you know, it's like an open pore. Anything that touches it seems to mar the finish. So I would worry about doing that. But on a vintage guitar, maybe a little, you know, but good tip otherwise. You can, yeah, I mean, you could put actually things on the inside of the F-holes. Like if you got creative and somehow found a way to tape cardboard or something on the inside so that it kind of just blocked the F-holes from the inside, you know, and then it wasn't touching the finish on the outside, that'll work too. But, you know, part of the magic is the feedback and that stuff. So if you can at all control your gain and volume and get into your rig so that like, I love the feel of the air coming out of the sound hole, you know, that hole that you feel it on a 335, the air actually pumping out of the sound hole, you know, it hits your arm when you're playing and it's cool. It, like, you're getting this like sort of physical reaction to playing and the feedback of the guitar, and then the guitar is taking it. It's like, that's part of the magic to me, is all that stuff. So I kind of don't want to kill it. I kind of always feel like I'm killing something when I put foam in those guitars. Sometimes you have to, but it's like, you know, it's part of the fun thing is that stuff. So if there's a way to control it, you know, it's neat. You and Britt were in a video dedication to EVH last week. That's cool. The video was on the Blabbermouth page. I was there, and there was people filming and stuff. And I didn't see it, but it was a nice event. You know, I like that the coolest speaker to me was the mayor, because he got up and talked about, you know, Van Halen fans and, you know, what a big part of Pasadena history Van Halen was and that kind of thing. And he was really cool. So he talked also, he said something that he just touched on it briefly, and I wish he'd actually gone further into it, but he talked about the uniquely American story that is, the Van Halen story. And I mentioned it last week, so I won't reiterate, but I love that aspect of it. So it was really cool. Do you record your sessions, your jam sessions, or practice songwriting? I find all invent awesome song ideas and then forget them. Well, you got to record on your phone, man. This is the key. The second the thing comes to you, turn on the voice recorder. It's right there on your. Why does my Face ID not work that well anymore? Anyway, the voice recorder. It's like looks like a little like this thing right here. That's like this little voice memos app, right? And then it comes up, and you just hit the red button, and it'll start recording instantly, like that. And now it's recording. You can see hello, the waveform. That is the key, man. To honestly, to I need to trash that because. Don't want to keep that in there, but then it's there, and then you no excuses. You've got all your ideas. We're all carrying around a little portable recorder all the time. Works so well. It works so well. George Lynch always plays outside. Well, George is another similar, very EVH, like just great instincts and feel and amazing technique, tone in his hands and all that stuff, but not, I don't think, like a schooled musician. He like learned, he's like a street guy like EVH was, or although EVH had his training on piano and stuff, but George is just pure instinct, I think, and he comes up with some amazing stuff. I mean, he's a total badass, but he's one of those kind of, and that's what makes him interesting. There's some personality in his playing, and he's hilarious. So he's super funny. Do you like Wolfgang guitars? I do. Yeah, I have one here, and I've put it to great use over the years. I really enjoy it. It's a terrific instrument. So, yeah. What else? Would you put P90s in a 335? Anything I should look out for? No, I mean, it's a great sound. I mean, that's basically, similar to some, I mean, Hollow Buddy Gibsons and things of the day back. It's a cool thing for sure. Definitely a good sound. Anything to watch out for? Well, it's going to get buzzier, if they're not hum canceling, but that's okay. It's just part of the magic of the P90, I think. Let's see. What else we got here? Foam F-hole plugs. Yeah, you can put foam in F, like that I was talking about it earlier on a 335 or that style guitar. If you want to stuff the, I've used everything from towels to like, the kind of foam that comes in, say, like a Seymour Duncan pickup box that the pickup sits in, like whatever, that kind of foam. You get it in like packaging sometimes and stuff, and it's foamy, but whatever, stuff that in the sound hole. It'll definitely help. But it can be difficult to get out of there too, so. Let's see. Saw you live at the Classic Rock Show tour in the UK. Thank you. Top guitar playing. Thank you. Yeah, I'll be back. Always fun. Always fun. Yeah. Spray foam in the F-hole. John, no, I wouldn't do that. I think it might work actually just fine. Is it just solidify and then you can pull it out? I guess it wouldn't be so bad if it was if you could get it out of the guitar, Yeah. It's a silly question. Have you ever tried some licks based just on its look to see what it sounds like? Like a plus shape or cross or low resolution circle shape on the fretboard. I haven't really ever thought about it quite like that. Only down to the, if something falls under the fingers like Eddie Van Halen. I mean, a lot of his licks kind of, the solo to Ice Cream Man, has that, it's got a linear kind of, I don't know, what's the across the fingerboard, the frets that you're hitting, obviously he just tried things with shapes, it's, when I see his playing, it's like, there's a thing that he does with shapes and things that fall under the fingers. And then if you do them kind of fast and always start on a good note and resolve on a good note, they work, so that was part of his technique, sometimes when he did chromatic kind of shape based kind of stuff on the guitar, I'm usually not really like a fan of that. sort of thing, like just playing the boxes or the shapes. But when Eddie did it, he managed to make it sound so cool through amazing phrasing and tone and attitude. And so there's no rules, is there? You know, he can do it, and it sounds amazing. You know, it sounds cool and sophisticated and dangerous and interesting. You know, when the way that he did it. So it's about as unjazz of an approach as you can get in many ways. You know, to not really be spelling out the chords or be, it's about as uncaged system or something as well, as you can get. But it was an amazing approach to have that he made work, So anyways, I always think about the old lady menacing Colorado Boulevard in the loud Dodge. That would be my first exposure to Pasadena, California. The little old lady from Pasadena. She's the terror of the Colorado Boulevard in her super stock Dodge, right? Yeah. Right. That would be my first, And then, of course, Van Halen shortly after that. Arthur says he's just showing support. No question or real comment. Thanks, man. Thanks for being here. I love that you're here. Okay. My niece here says I can't tell what key or notes I play if I record myself. Can't you say it if I play an A note, so recording myself, like literally say, okay, I'm playing the A open fifth string, and explain. And then, okay, I'm playing the, just talk into the recorder and give yourself some clues where you are on the neck or something. Maybe that'll help. Vito says that he's starting to gig more seriously and looking to put together a live rig. I have some rack gear, depth 5. What's that? And looking for a power amp. Looking at the Matrix 1000. Yeah, I like the way they sound. They sound really good. I don't think they're going to be making anymore. That's what I've heard. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but that's what I've heard, is that I don't think they're going to produce anymore. So just buyer beware and stuff like that when it comes to that sort of thing. But they've always made a good product. You might want to check. I don't want to talk out of turn, but that's just what I've heard. So, just, it's a good sounding power amp. I just wish there was more out there for guitar power amps. There ain't a hell of a lot of them, and there's this market for it, is the thing. And so people need to make more of them. That's why Duncan's done well, I think, with the Power Stage. There used to be the Rocktron Velocity rack, right? It was really cool. There's not a lot of guitar players using rack mount stuff, but the AXFX has rack mount, I guess. But there's a lot of people using, the AX8 or the newer one, the FX, whatever it's called. I can't remember the newer AX, FM3, FM9, right? Those, the Quad Cortex, the floor helixes. And then some of these people want to play through cabs. So I just feel like there's this great big open, thing out there. There's a market for, it's maybe sort of niche, but not really, for a power amp to play through a guitar cabinet that is light and recreates because you don't really need, you just need something that's relatively flat and sounds good, and has a bit of maybe active reactant with a like a depth and presence controls or something like that, and that's about it. But in a small format, that's, I guess you can make some for rack, but also maybe make it in a monoblock or something that's like a cool little thing that you could possibly fit under some pedals on a pedal board, or it's kind of what Duncan did. I mean, really, I'm just saying, like, I wish somebody made one that's maybe not Class D. It doesn't have to be the loudest thing on earth either, or the cleanest thing, because we just don't need that much volume these days on stage. I find people like lower volumes generally, so just loud enough to push a guitar cabinet with a drummer on stage and nothing more. But there ain't a hell of a lot of them out there. Do you guys know about ones that I don't know about? I wonder, is there any others besides the Duncan? Orange kind of makes something, I think, but the Matrix, they really had that market kind of cornered, I think, for a while. William's asking me again about Cerberus guitars. No, I was talking about that earlier. I haven't tried those. Not familiar with those. Yeah. Todd says instead of just recording yourself, film yourself with your phone. That's true too. You could just film yourself. Put the camera phone up or whatever and record what you're playing so you can see what your hands are doing if you want to remember. What's going on with the tuners on Pete's guitar? These are the Sir locking tuners. So you can see they got the wheels on the back, and you lock the string in the post with those. So the thing with a locking tuner is when you do it a little different. There's no wrap around the post. You stick the string straight through the hole in the post, pull it tight, and then turn that wheel on the back and lock it. And now the string's stuck in there. And then you tune it up, and the string just kind of curls around the post. And it's basically almost a straight. There's no wrap around the post. It's just the tuner hole turns and kind of goes sideways like this, and now you've got the string going straight to the hole and being, then you've got less wrap, less chance for the string to kind of move around and go out of tune and use the trem and all that kind of stuff. Just a little bit more, solid. So, what else have we got here? What is your desert island amp? Really like if I had one amp for the rest of my life and career and one guitar, it'd be my signature Sir, probably the new one, the Hum Single, and the PT100, because I could do just about anything with those. And a PT15 close second is just like not quite as loud, so it's not as versatile in every situation, but it's got the added advantage of the built-in load. So if I was on that desert island that happened to have power somehow, I'd be able to use it to track silently. But yeah, PT15 or PT100, I could basically, I'm no spring chicken. I could use one of those for the rest of my career and do a lot of work. William says, oh, sorry, I missed it earlier. No problem, dude. I didn't want you to think I hadn't answered yet. Yeah, I'm not familiar with them. Is Class D bad for a power amp? No, it works. The Duncan sounds good. I just sort of, it's a good sounding power amp, and I got good results. I just used one live in Malta a couple of weeks ago. It sounded cool, but there is something about Class D to me that sounds a little different than, say, my Matrix. And I don't know what it is, but there's a certain immediate hardness to a Class D power amp that always seems to be there. There's just a certain sound to them. Not that couldn't be changed or EQ'd or tamed or whatever, but it's digital, right? So I wonder, and generally I don't worry about this stuff, but it's probably introducing a little latency. It has to, right? Because there's got to be A to D and D to A because it's a digital power amp. Am I wrong about that? Correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I'm assuming there's a conversion going on within it. I think. No, am I dumb? Is it just something that's, I think I'm right about that, right? I don't know everything. Friedman, if you're still here, respond. Tell me. But I'm pretty sure that there's the sort of the digital thing combined with the certain response that they seem to just have a quick hardness to them that is a certain thing. Rob says, send your Matrix back for repairs. Well, yes, I have to do that. I do have to do that. I've still got Steve Stevens actually he lent me one to use it was the 2 rack space, the bigger one, GT1500 or something. And I used that for the Five for Fighting tour. Sir question, what neck profile is most similar to Charvel's? I would say maybe the elliptical or the, feels. I don't know if it technically is, but that's the one to me. It's maybe a little thicker, but like whatever the Guthrie Govan or the modern ellipticals had the most sort of like, wide, flat, kind of D-like thing going on. They would probably be able to answer that better than me, but because you see a lot of Sirs that are not a lot, but you just see the ones that are kind of like the 80s shredder types with the big frets and the maple fingerboards that just look like that Charvel style, and they would be able to tell you, oh yeah, it's kind of the either the modern elliptical or the D or something. The dealers would have a better handle on that, I think. But those are the ones that I've tried. The neck on my modern is super comfortable. As a matter of fact, it's probably more comfortable than any, the sort of modern Charvel styles that I've played. And that's just I think it's the Guthrie neck that I've got on that guitar. Or maybe it's the modern elliptical. Can't remember. I don't think they're that different, but it's marginally different. Does that half-watt amp have a line out or effects loop? Well, it's got a preamp out that you could use to go into a power amp and effects, that kind of thing. But it doesn't have an effects loop. No. Someone mentioned Quilter power amp. Oh, that's interesting. Does Quilter make a separate power amp outside of their? I wonder that. Because that's that's kind of the form that I was talking about. I'm not sure. I guess you could use the Tone Block 200-watt guitar head. Yeah, kind of, and it's obviously got the preamp built in and stuff. I'm just not sure that they make just a power amp version. I know, okay, they make the Tone Blocks, and then they make the Super Block 25-watt guitar power amp. That's interesting. I'm gonna take another look here at the stuff see what they got. Tone Block 200, Overdrive 202, the 101 Reverb. They make a few different ones. But yeah, I really think, there's a, let's see, there's an option there for them, to just make their power amps in a, heads, combos, cabinets. Like, I'm not seeing, everything that they make has a pre of some sort built in, I think, doesn't it? Everything, has preamps built in. So if you didn't want that, what if you just want a power amp that's literally got like a depth control or something on it and a presence, and that's kind of it, they don't seem to make that. It'd be cool. Just throwing it out there. Easy. Okay. Let's see. What else have we got here? You're interested in the 2-Notes Revolt as a replacement for my Iridium. Have you reviewed it? I haven't, but I've tried it. It was at NAMM, and I checked it out, and it seemed quite cool. This is a 3-channel 2-Notes preamp, kind of like in it. So it's got a Fender clean, a Marshall drive, and I think an SLO style lead channel, right? And I just haven't had a chance to check it out yet. I was actually thinking about it the other day, like, what's going on with that thing? Is it out yet? Or, I don't think it's out yet though. So we'll take a look. Quilter SA200. That looks like a rack mount head. Yeah, I'm just talking about a little power amp. Something the size of, the Duncan Power Stage. They've got a great thing going there, something like that size, kind of, And then you're saying TC says Quilter Tone Block 201, just plug into the effects return. Yeah, but then you're paying for the preamp and all that. I'm just saying for guys that have Helixes, Quad Cortex, Axe Effects, or, reamping a loaded down amp or any of that kind of stuff, a simple, make a monoblock, make a stereo version that's got nothing but a volume and a depth and a presence, maybe. That's it, that kind of thing. Not having the preamp built in and all that stuff. So, let's see here. What else have we got going on? Friedman says ISP Stealth. What's that? Power amp? Stealth Pro Power Amp. Oh, yeah. Okay. Never heard of this thing. Wow. Dave, why didn't you tell me about it last night? It does look cool. It's not expensive. I wonder if it's any good. I'd have to try it to find out. But, okay, yeah, that's kind of an interesting looking one. All right. I'm going to check that out later. So I should say it's class A, B. I don't know. I'm going to read it later. Okay. Headed down the bottom. I'm feeling a lull. It's almost time for me to go. I'm going to go soon. But not just yet. I'm looking through your comments here. What about the Synergy 5050? No, but that's too big, Lauren. I can't put that in my suitcase. I'm talking about a light. Like, it's got to be like the Duncan. The Duncan I can literally throw in my backpack, which I've done. I can put a Quad Cortex and a Seymour Duncan in my backpack and fly with my computer in there too. Oops, sorry, whack the microphone. It's got to be, and I don't need a tube, just a solid state that's tuned right, solid state done right. That sounds really good, like the Matrix. It'd be nice if it sounded as good as the as good as the Matrix, you know, even just in a monoblock for, yeah. The Class D, the D in Class D doesn't stand for digital. It's a type of transformer. But isn't Class D digital? I wasn't suggesting that, but I thought Class D power amps were, because everybody says they're a digital power amp, you know. I'm a moron when it comes to this stuff, but Class D, I don't understand it. But a Class D amplifier, a switching amplifier, is an electronic amplifier in which the amplifying devices operate as electronic switches and not as linear gain devices as in other amplifiers. They operate by rapidly switching back and forth between the supply rails. This is above my pay grade. Anyways, for this reason, efficiency can exceed 90%. So whatever, it's completely different. But there's a lot of people say that they're digital. I don't know what that means, you know, but maybe it's like digital, vertical DMOS technology, 1985, Class D amplifiers. I don't know. Somebody explain it to me. Why do people refer to them as digital sometimes? I'm here for the knowledge. Class D is often MOSFET. Interesting. Class D switch mode. See, there's a whole bunch of knowledgeable guys in here. Class D does not mean digital. Okay, that's a common misconception. Definitely, I've got that misconception. But that's why I said, don't, you know, that was my disclaimer, was like, is there any kind of A to D conversion? You know? So I need to ask somebody about it so that I can, oh, that's a good idea. Can Friedman clear the air on power class in a nutshell? Yeah, I would love that if somebody kind of explained what was going on and why they sound generally the way that they sound, the way that they do, you know. What about the old Marshall valve state power? They're pretty cool, those things. I remember them, but they're also kind of big and rack mount, you know. So too big to put in a you know, suitcase. I think about a backpack. A monoblock, like it's got literally the size of the Seymour Duncan. You know, it's a great form. You know, the Duncan. It's tiny. Have you guys seen it? You know what I'm talking about, right? I'm gonna show you what I mean. If you haven't seen it, let's get it out of the box. I've got it right here. I don't want it to be any bigger than this, because this exists and works. You know. Little fan in there, the whole 9 yards, the little EQ. So it's got to be this, because this I can throw in a backpack. You know, this is the, you know, like it's just like when you're flying. It's like, okay, I can bring a backpack, a guitar, and one carry-on suitcase. You know, what am I going to do? And this, you know, I literally used this into a cab and played it in front of a couple thousand people in Malta, you know, a couple weeks ago. It did the job, keeps me underweight, you know, and sounds cool. So what do we got? What's anybody saying? What else we got? The Stealth, the ISP. The ISP does look kind of like that. So, yeah. Lawrence's PS Audio has a video that explains it well. I'm too tired to restate it. My brain function is reduced. Oh, Lauren, thank you. Send me the video later. I'll check it out. Will vacuum tubes phase out? I don't think they'll ever go away. No, I don't think they'll ever go. Not entirely. It's always going to be, you know, it's like there's almost been a resurgence in hi-fi, you know. It's like, will vinyl go away? No, it's actually more than ever, you know. Dave saying no. Not me. Class D amplifiers are more efficient than Class AB. But they've always got a sound. They've always got this certain sound. That's the only thing that's slightly different. There's just a little bit of a hardness to it. No, Class D does not mean digital. Okay, cool. Is this what digitally control over the voltage? Is that true? No? Yeah. You want one? I can build you one. Interesting. EX. Oh, God damn it. The EHX Magnum 44 pedal power amp. Yeah, I've seen that one. That was one of the originals, the little 22 and then the 44, you know, when they came out. Yeah. Oh, I missed a super chat. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. Have you tried the Fryette PS100 with your quad cortex? Uh, I think I did, yeah. Just mic'd through the cab in the other room just to see, like, kinda what it sounded like, and that's cool. That's great. I mean, the Fryette's a flat tube power, but it's all I can't put the Fryette in my backpack, you know? It's a reasonably sized tube power amp, but it still weighs, you know, it's got some heft to it. I'm not gonna take it on a, you know, on a fly date or something. Too much, you know. Some people would, but not this guy. So let's see. I'm surprised Tech 21 doesn't make one. Yeah, they would seem like a no-brainer to make one. But also, I honestly think this is the honest truth. I think Neural, I think the Axe Effects folks, you know, Fractal, I think Line 6, I think all these companies should make one as a companion product. If you've got a preamp that people are going to want to play through a cabinet, make one that has a form factor that kind of goes with your product. Make a bag so that you can put them together. You know, a quad cortex and a little power amp, or a, you know, a Fractal with, you know, your FM3 or whatever you've got, and a little power amp for guys that don't want to play through a cab. You know, they're out there. I mean, Helix, you know, I played through the rig, the fellow from Deftones. He's a Helix user, and he's got an amazing sounding friggin' rig that's huge, that, you know, with 6 412s or something, 4 412s, 6 412s. And he's a Helix guy and running it into power amps and stuff into cabinets. There's a prominent, you know, Helix user that's still into playing through cabs on stage. So people want to do this. So it's just like, just make a, you know, a device that does this. Does KSR have one? That's interesting, because they're the company that makes this pre. So that's cool. If they make a companion to this guy, I'd like to see that. I'm just not aware of them, so that's why I'm asking. If anybody knows, I'm going to open that up. KSR. Take a look here and see what they do for later on, for sure. KSR amplification, compact power amp. I just saw a link. Do they really make one? That's very interesting. KSR amplifiers. What about? Oh, there it is. Okay. It's kind of a lunchbox sort of looking affair with top bottom, negative feedback. It's got all the right stuff on it, that's for sure. Negative feedback control. That's cool. And it's called the PA25. Okay, I'll take a look at that. It's a little, like, it looks kind of like a power supply for a Neve console, or for a Neve you know, mic pre's. It's an interesting box that it's in. It looks a little maybe kind of big for what, but I will be happy to check that out and see, you know. This thing is so, once you got something this small and then you go work with it, it's like, okay, that worked. Literally backpack, you know. But this thing might fit that bill. It's a little more square rectangle, a little bigger. But I want to try it. I do. A couple super chats here. Sorry, I gotta grab those. I'm gonna go get some lunch. I'm excited about lunch. Would you recommend Sir Reactive Load IR or the aux? I only use Greenback and V30. The aux, okay, so the aux has more options as far as effects and stuff like that goes. If that's not important to you, it's also got more cabinets, you know. But you can't load your own IRs into it. So that's the only thing. It's got reverb though, and it's got you know, room mics and different things. So you have to ask yourself what's more important. It's also double the price. So if the cost is a factor, you know, I still think that the best load in the business is the Sir. Great load, and then, you know, it's just simple too, you know, the sort of lack of sophistication of it when it comes to being able to, you know, add effects, or, you know, room mics and all this kind of stuff, maybe is also its strength. It's just such a simple device with 16 IRs of all the kind of main food groups there on a knob that you can just turn and go like, okay, great. Like, you kind of can get it, plug it in, and get on to making music very quick. And for a lot of guitar players, that's that simplicity and just straight to the point is a great thing, you know. So if you're that kind of guy, like, I don't want to mess around a lot. I like playing. I want to write. I want to get work done, and I don't necessarily want to spend like a ton of money. Go with the Sir. If you're like, I love reverb, I like modulated delays, I sometimes want to use an AC30 style cabinet, sometimes I want to open back 410, and sometimes I want greenbacks. and I want to be able to EQ on the unit, well, then you need the aux. So it's just the type of guitar player you are, you know. Christian says, thanks for all the info. Got to run. Thanks for another great stream. Thanks, man. I'm going to go soon too here. Yeah. Was at the Malta gig. You sounded pretty sweet. Thanks, man. Yeah, it was good. That's cool. You were there. What were you doing all the way over in Malta? That crazy place in the middle of the ocean. Fun hang. I had a really good time that night. It was very hot, but it was fun. And I enjoyed the sound too. The cab on stage was great. I used this rented Randall 412s I forgot how good their Randall cabs were, you know, just with V30s, and they're very solid construction, the birch and everything. It was like, you know, they made really good cabinets. Thank you, Peter, for the super chat, dude. Great tunes and a super cool little amp this week. We'll be ordering one this week. Videos this week. So I'm making a video for these orange pedals, just a distortion and a phaser, these vintage style pedals. I'm going to do that real quick. I've got videos coming for a compressor, as well as, God, there's a fuzz coming up. There's a, I got to get the Ampster done by Carl Martin. There's the Duke of Tone. That's coming on the 1st. I got to get that out for the 1st of, so I better finish that like ASAP, maybe tomorrow. Duke of Tone is Prince, the Prince of Tone or Duke of Tone? I think it's the Duke of Tone. Mixed up sometimes with the King, the Prince, and then the Duke. This is the Duke of Tone. For those that haven't tried the original Analog Man King of Tone, it's a 2-pedal jobby, like 2-button, you know, 2-side, whatever. Not 2-pedal, it's 1 pedal with 2 sides, different circuits. The clean side, or the green side, cleaner side of that pedal, was always my favorite, and a really, really great sounding unit. Just used to use it with Melissa Etheridge a lot, and it sounded magical in front of my Jim Kelly amp. Just a really, really cool tone. So I might bust out the Jim Kelly for this video, actually, because I've got it and I haven't used it in a while, and it just sounds so good with the green side of the King of Tone. So long story short, MXR has come out with a Duke of Tone. This is that circuit, you know, the Analog Man circuit, but with a few options. You got to switch here for overdrive, boost, and distortion, so to get some different levels of clipping and stuff like that in the pedal. And then you've got your basic tone, drive, volume. I assume the green mode, I just got to double check and read the copy on it, but I assume that the boost mode is like the original King of Tone green side. I'm pretty sure yellow side, whatever it was, the LED. That's probably the sound, and then they've just added a couple other options or whatever. But that was always one of my favorite kind of like organic, you know, on the edge of breakup kind of pedals. So really, really good, and nice set, and you know, famous for having a long wait list, because it was very popular in Analog Man. It's just one guy making those, and so now if they've kind of got a version that you can get, it's readily available. That's pretty cool. Sorry, I'm hiccuping or burping or something. Thanks, Peter Evans, for the super chat. Thanks to all you guys for your super chats this week. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Duke of Tone, Duke of Tone, Duke of Tone. Yeah. Let's see. Buy 2 MXR and you have a full King of Tone. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe the distortion side. I tried it. I don't know that that's the same circuit as the red side, this little switch. Maybe. I'll look it up. I need to read about it a little bit more. But anyways, great pedal, King of Tone. I'm still looking through questions here. I should be going, but I'm not. I'm looking at what you guys are talking about. Did you ever play Van Halen Amsterdam? I never did. No. You know, I don't know, dude, that I ever played a Sammy era song, which is not a diss or anything, but I was always so interested in the guitar, what exactly was going on the first, you know, the 6-pack. And then beyond that, I guess I probably played Best of Both Worlds in a band in high school, you know, and maybe like, you know, was it 316 the solo? Was that what it's called? You know, the one that he did in his solo in 5150. I learned that a little bit and stuff, but mostly it's kind of funny when I think about it. Like I guess I played Finish What You Started in a cover band. That's true too. Totally different thing though, right? The country direct Strat song. Cool. you know, but it's a different vibe. How long does it take to make a video? It depends on the video. If it's a video that I made like the one I did the other day, I kind of spent a long time on that, actually, writing the track and then getting it to where I felt like I was playing it comfortably and it was rolling around under the fingers. So, but I didn't work like all day on it. It was kind of stretched over 3 days of me recording, getting drums going, and then like practicing, and then like kind of, I took too long on it is what it is. I love it when I can do a whole video in one day. That's great, for my sanity and also just to keep, work going. If I can finish one in a day, but that doesn't often happen. So, yeah. Let's see. You're the best. Appreciate your knowledge. Thanks, man. Thanks for being here. I appreciate that. Chris says a compact power amp with the Friedman name would probably sell. Probably makes Dave tired to think about it. Yes, I think it does. No, I don't know. They'll probably do it at some point. Yeah. The new Super Block line from Quilter feel like real tube amps. I'd like to try that UK British version. I'd like to give that a try. I have another one here that I will show you right now. I don't know what the power amp is in this. There's a lot of these things coming out. Look at this one. Tube hybrid guitar amp. This has tubes in it and a preamp. The TX Watt. Made in the USA. I don't know how powerful it is, but minimum 4 ohm speaker. I don't know how powerful it is. But I plugged it in, and I gotta say, it sounds good. So another sort of, you could put it on a pedal board. It's pretty big, but I've got a few of these things here right now, right? This is the Dumble one. This doesn't have a power amp in it, I don't think, though. Or does it? I don't think so. I think it's just, I think this is just a preamp with this crazy transformer in it. So you need a power amp with this guy. So here would be another, if this fella made a companion power amp, Halen, maybe something you could put underneath it or something. Carl Martin Ampster, that needs a companion power amp. It's really made to be run direct, but Anyways, there's a couple here that you guys have turned me on to. This PA25 from KSR. I'm going to check that out. Also going to check out the Stealth from ISP. I got to take a look at that. See what those are all about. And the Crate Power Block. Hey, those were all right. I remember, it was like, they were all right at the time, What about the old, getting this GK 250 ML? That's an amp with power amp, with it's 50 watt aside, I think, right? What about that power amp? Like whatever GK was doing back then, maybe they should make one. Just, they had it in the 80s without speakers and a preamp or anything, The TX Watt is 100 watt, just had a peak. Did you see anything Hip Metalworks about whether it's Class A, B, or Class D, or what it is? Yeah, just wonder. Power amp shootout. Reach out to the companies. Yeah, I think Quilter should honestly. I've tried a little bit of their stuff. I think they should just make a simple power amp version, power amp only version for modelers and stuff. Yeah. Hughes and Kettner makes one. Oh, that's interesting. The Stomp Man. Let's take a look at that. Hughes and Kettner Stomp amp. Let's see that. Yeah, because they've got some diddly stuff, don't they? Spirit Stomp Man, guitar amp and a stomp. So, see, it's got preampy stuff in it, doesn't it? Stomp Man. Looks like it's got single channel guitar amp and pedal board friendly. Master sagging gain, presence, resonance, tone. Got an effect loop. Maybe. If it's got an effect return, does it? Yeah, it's got a return. Yeah, you wouldn't need the front end, I guess it's kind of cool to have the front end just in case your stuff breaks, your Axe Effects goes out of business, something happens, yeah. So, okay. Well, you guys, I better go. I'm delirious right now thinking about all this stuff, and I'm going to head out and get some lunch and stuff, and then I'm going to come back and work on some videos and stuff like that for the rest of the day. So I'll get more done this week. Thanks again to, if you ever see this, Mr. Paul Landers, for having me to the Rammstein, or Rammstein, to say it right, show last night. What an amazing show that was. It was so much fun. And I just had a great time. And music is powerful. It's so much fun. I love it. I'll see you guys next week for more fun and games. Good times. I'm thinking, too, about the Vox amps in the zone, about getting that done relatively soon here, tackling that. And, you know, that's going to be a fun one. Just be a couple days of getting into it and finishing it. So I don't know if I can do it this week, but soon. That's coming. Okay, everybody take care. Thanks a lot for all your super chats. Thanks for all the love. Oh, somebody just sent another one. That's Mike. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Y'all have a great week, and stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.